You remember all the jobs you've had? I've done a lot of different things. Some of them were not so fun. From high school through part of college, I was a super duper pooper scooper at the Iowa State Dairy Farm and got to clean a lot of pens among other farm chores. Sometime in one of my senior years, I started off working at the horticulture department, and we had to go out and pick up all the fruit and vegetables that were left out in the field, come in, put them in a big barrel, add water, turn them into puree, and then strain the seeds out. So by the time you get out to the field and pick up old tomatoes, they're nasty. You know, they're rotten, they stink. Then you come in, you have a barrel full of rotten tomatoes, and it was not a fun job. I think cleaning the barns probably smelled better. I've had some pretty good jobs. My sophomore year, I was a journalism major, and a guy that went to our church was the assistant sports information director. So for that football season, I got to be the sideline reporter on the Iowa State side, and every time there was an injury, I got to call up to the press box and give them information, which then they sent out over the broadcast world. It is a great place to watch a game at the 50-yard line on the bench, though I had to stand on the bench so I could see over the players, you know. That made me about 2 inches taller than most of them. I got to be a writer that traveled around the country. Awesome job. Best job I ever had is pastor in this church. There's a young man who was overheard making a call, and the listener heard the following side of the conversation. The kid said, "Sir, could you use an honest, hard-working, capable employee?" "No." "Oh, you already have one? Well, thanks anyway." And he hung up, and he was smiling. And he began to whistle as he turned to walk to his car, and the listener said, "Young man, I couldn't help but overhear your conversation. Am I right in thinking you just got turned down for a job?" And the fella said, "Yep." "Why are you so happy about it?" He goes, "Because I am the honest, hard-working, capable employee they already have. I was just checking on my job." Not much is said from the pulpit about work. If it is, it seems like it's more about self-actualization, having dreams and a vision for your life, and how to convince God to bless you with a promotion and a raise, which is actually far more about pop psychology than Scripture. We spend a significant portion of our time at our job, so it would seem to be important to give some attention on how that fits into our faith walk and how our faith walk fits into our work. We sometimes treat work like it's part of Adam's curse that he brought to the world by his sin in the Garden of Eden. It's not. God had given Adam a job to do before he sinned. If you'll look at Genesis 2:15 up on the screen, the Lord God placed the man in the Garden of Eden to tend and to watch over it. That tells us that we are created for work. So quite honestly, we're happiest when we're working. That doesn't mean that every job is great or fun or good, but we're created to do a job, and there's a sense of accomplishment that comes when we are earning a living and we're providing for our families. I think that's one of the reasons that programs that take away incentive, whether it's employment or schooling, tend to fail, because they remove the opportunity to experience success and achievement. Our work is a great test of our character. Your negative traits will come out at work, right? Laziness, deception, dishonesty, greed, gossip, pettiness, disloyalty, impatience, you name it. We've all seen it at the office place, right? Hopefully we haven't exhibited it, but we've seen it. Your positive traits will also be on display. Honesty, ambition, punctuality, sense of humor, harmony, friendliness, a sense of teamwork, enthusiasm, willingness to serve others, among many others. Being a good employee is a lot like tennis. If you can't serve well, you'll end up losing. Our character gets tested because there's pressure at work. There's the workload, right? We got deadlines, too many emails, assignments that never end. There's always something to be done, right? There's the pressure of working with people, not only fellow employees, but customers, and some of them are not nice. And some of them are not easy to be around. There's the pressure of efficiency, the need to be organized, to finish things, to make tough decisions, to be creative, to maintain budgets, and on and on and on. There's so much pressure at work. As Christians, Jesus is the Lord of our life. There are no areas that are left out of that. He's not just the Lord of our church life, our devotional life. He's the Lord of all our life. And for us, there's no separation between our spiritual life and our secular life. So we must let him be the Lord of our work life. Joseph gives us a great model for that. As we continue looking at the life of Joseph, we're getting close to the end. Next week we'll finish up the series. Remember, he is now the prime minister of Egypt, second only to Pharaoh. He's been prime minister through 7 years of plenty and is now in the middle of the 7 years of famine. He's responsible to help the country deal with this, and now his extended family of 70 has shown up, and he's responsible for them as well. And Joseph handles all of this with integrity. The first thing he does is he plans ahead with wise objectivity. Look at Genesis 46, verse 31. And Joseph said to his brothers and to his father's entire family, I will go to Pharaoh and tell him, my brothers and my father's entire family have come to me from the land of Canaan. These men are shepherds and they raise livestock. They have brought them with their flocks and herds and everything they own. And then he said, when Pharaoh calls for you and asks about your occupation, you must tell him, we, your servants, have raised livestock all our lives, as our ancestors have always done. And when you tell him this, he will let you live here in the region of Goshen, for the Egyptians despise shepherds. Joseph had done his homework. He had efficiently thought through a plan that was going to get his family settled. Now, he didn't simply just look across the landscape and say, hey, well, that looks like a good spot. Why don't you go live there? He had it planned, and he ran it by his superior. He was willing to be accountable to his boss, and he didn't manipulate him as a reminder. There was no, so you know how I've saved Egypt from the famine? Remember how I interpreted your dreams and how we've had all the years of plenty, and I've saved all those, and now we're not dying because we're feeding people from all the food that I saved and all that stuff? Well, I have a favor to ask of you. He didn't go that route. He didn't assume that he could just go ahead with his plans despite his level of authority and responsibility. Joseph knew how the Egyptians thought, how they reacted. He had not only worked with Pharaoh, but he had gone through the land, remember? And he'd studied, he'd observed people. And so he explains to his brothers, you're not in Canaan anymore, you're in Egypt. All I could think of this week, you remember the song from the 80s, Walk Like an Egyptian? They need to think like an Egyptian. All week I've been like, think like an Egyptian. So he tells them to inform Pharaoh that they're keepers of livestock. Now that word is interchangeable with shepherds. I read some stuff that some people were like, well, see, he's being kind of sneaky here because he's telling them you're keepers of livestock, not shepherds. And I'm thinking, Pharaoh's a pretty intelligent guy, right? So you say, I'm a keeper of livestock. Oh, you're a shepherd. It's not like a totally different thing. I don't think that was the deal at all. He understood the Egyptians. He says, so tell Pharaoh that you got a lot of animals and you take care of animals, because the Egyptians don't like that. And so you know what he's going to do? He's going to go, well, you need a lot of grazing space. Here, go take the land of Goshen, which has got lots of pasture. Go take your animals over there. And then Pharaoh solves two problems. He takes care of Joseph's family like he promised he would. He's got animal outs where they can graze, and he's got them away from the Egyptians. Joseph is up front. Excellent leaders understand things realistically. And they understand the importance of effective communication. They're not easily deceived. They don't deceive others. They have integrity. Let's go on. Joseph submits to authority with loyal accountability. Genesis 47, verse 1. Then Joseph went to see Pharaoh and told him, my father and my brothers have arrived from the land of Canaan. They've come with all their flocks and herds and possessions, and they are now in the region of Goshen. Joseph took 5 of his brothers with him and presented them to Pharaoh. And Pharaoh asked the brothers, what's your occupation? They replied, "We, your servants, are shepherds just like our ancestors. We've come to live here in Egypt for a while, for there's no pasture for our flocks in Canaan. The famine is very severe there, so please, we request permission to live in the region of Goshen." Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, "Now that your father and brothers have joined you here, choose any place in the entire land of Egypt for them to live. Give them the best land of Egypt. Let them live in the region of Goshen. And if any of them have special skills, you put them in charge of my livestock too." Then Joseph brought in his father Jacob and presented him to Pharaoh. And Jacob blessed Pharaoh. "How old are you?" Pharaoh asked him. Jacob replied, "I've traveled this earth for 130 hard years, but my life has been short compared to the lives of my ancestors." And then Jacob blessed Pharaoh again before leaving his court. So Joseph assigned the best land of Egypt, the region of Ramses, to his father and his brothers, and he settled them there just as Pharaoh had commanded. And Joseph provided food for his father and his brothers in amounts appropriate to the number of their dependents, including the smallest children. So Joseph takes 5 brothers and his father to meet Pharaoh. Pharaoh talks with the brothers about their future in Egypt and tells them the land is at their disposal. Notice the brothers said, "We're just going to be here for a while." You know, they didn't know that for a while was going to be 400 years, but, you know, it was for a while. They're not thinking this is a permanent move. This is just till the famine's over and we'll go back. And then Pharaoh has this great conversation with Jacob and learns a little bit about his experiences. We just get kind of a one-sentence summary here, but I love the summary. Basically, Jacob says, well, it's not the years, it's the miles, you know. And 130 hard years. So Joseph gets his family settled in the land of Goshen, or in the region of Zoan. It calls it here the area of Ramses. Ramses didn't show up for another 400 years, 400 years later. So this may be a note added later, just as explanation of like, oh, this is that area. Oh, yeah, okay, I know what you're talking about. It's in the Nile Delta. It was the most fertile part of Egypt. Do you serve under somebody else's authority? A lot of us do. Maybe since you've retired, your authority has changed. How's your attitude towards the person that you have to answer to? Having the right attitude can be difficult if the one that you answer to is a difficult person or an incompetent leader, has glaring weaknesses. It's not just a test of your loyalty, but of your Christian maturity. And we see here that Joseph had the power just to designate this. Pharaoh had given him permission, but Joseph still comes back and runs it through with his superior, just to make sure it's okay. Covers his bases. That way there can be no accusations made, whatever. We follow the proper procedures. It's done. And we see Joseph continue to lead with wisdom and with discernment. Look at verse 13. Meanwhile, the famine had become so severe that all the food was used up. And the people were starving throughout the lands of Egypt and Canaan. By selling grain to the people, Joseph eventually collected all the money in Egypt and Canaan, and he put the money in Pharaoh's treasury. And when the people of Egypt and Canaan ran out of money, all the Egyptians came to Joseph. "Our money is gone," they cried. "But please give us food, or we will die before your very eyes." And Joseph replied, "Since your money is gone, bring your livestock. I'll give you food in exchange for your livestock." So they brought their livestock to Joseph in exchange for food. In exchange for their horses, flocks of sheep and goats, herds of cattle and donkeys, Joseph provided them with food for another year. So the famine is continuing, and the people are beginning to panic. It's not unlike the Great Depression years here in America. What can we do? How will we survive? Amy and I were watching a documentary the other night. I think it was the one on Quincy Jones, and he was talking about how poor they were growing up. He's a musician and a producer. And while they were living in the Chicago area, he says, my grandma would do anything to feed us. And so we'd have turnip greens, we'd have whatever, rat, and I can't remember what the other one was. I'm like, you got to be hungry to eat rat. And he's like, and we ate it because that's what we had to eat. They're in this deal. Like, we got no food. What are we going to eat? Got to eat something. How are we going to survive? Their lives are at stake, and this puts Joseph in an incredible position of power. and he handles it with integrity. The people are out of money. They can't buy food. They come to Joseph with empty hands and needs, and Joseph responds by treating them with dignity and respect. Remember, he has everything, and they have nothing. He could have said, too bad. You better figure out something. But he doesn't. He comes up with a plan. They can trade their livestock for food. He didn't put them on welfare. He didn't give them a handout. Instead, he tells them to bring what they had, their livestock. In exchange, he would give them food. And if you would go and look, I think one of the things that you would see, it's not like they took their cattle and then Pharaoh had all these herds and nobody else had anything. I think they signed them over and then he sent them back with them because they were used to taking care of them. Remember, Pharaoh was already like, I don't know what to do with all these things. If your brothers are really good at watching herds, maybe they can watch some of mine, you know? So, yeah, they signed them over and then they sent them right back so they could keep raising their cattle. Way back in Genesis 41:3, we get a clue as to why Joseph could do this. Remember, he's talking to Pharaoh. He's interpreted Pharaoh's dreams, and he says, he's given Pharaoh some advice. And in verse 33, he says, therefore, Pharaoh should find an intelligent and wise man to put him in charge of the entire land of Egypt. That word intelligent is also translated discernment or discerning. And Pharaoh clearly saw that Joseph was that kind of man. Now, discerning means to have a shrewd insight to the situation and its needs. Chuck Swindoll says it's like having a sixth sense of anticipation. Discernment sees a situation accurately and also has a sense and a leading of what the right response to the situation is. From a spiritual perspective, it's having a sense of God's leading and an understanding of the real issues and the implications of the decisions at hand. One of the things that my dad was able to do that I always respected is when they were looking at decisions, whether that was a church, whether it worked, my dad had the ability to look down and go, okay, these three things could happen. If we make this decision, here's three possibilities, and so if this happens, here's where we're going to go. If this happens, this is where we're going to go. And my dad could just read a situation and was gifted that way. This is what we're talking about here. A leader also has to be wise. Wisdom is different than knowledge. Knowledge may give you the facts, but wisdom tells you the best way to apply them. And Joseph, rather than creating panic or inciting a mob or setting off a revolution, offers a solution, and it works, and it pleased the people. Verse 18, but that year ended, and the next year they came again, and they said, we cannot hide the truth from you, my Lord. Our money is gone, and all our livestock and cattle are yours. We have nothing left to give but our bodies and our land. Why should we die before your very eyes? Buy us and our land in exchange for food. We offer our land and ourselves as slaves for Pharaoh. Just give us grain so that we may live and not die, and so the land does not become empty and desolate. So Joseph brought all the land of Egypt for Pharaoh. All the Egyptians sold him their fields because the famine was so severe, and soon all the land belonged to Pharaoh. As for the people, he made them all slaves from one end of Egypt to the other. The only land he did not buy was the land belonging to the priests. They received an allotment of food directly from Pharaoh, so they didn't need to sell their land. And then Joseph said to the people, look, today I have bought you and your land for Pharaoh. I will provide you with seed so that you can plant the fields. Then when you harvest it, 1/5 of your crop will belong to Pharaoh. You may keep the remaining 4/5 as seed for your fields and as food for you, your households, and your little ones. You saved our lives, they exclaimed. May it please you, my Lord, to let us be Pharaoh's servants. Joseph then issued a decree, still in effect in the land of Egypt, that Pharaoh should receive 1/5 of all the crops grown on his land. Only the land belonging to the priests was not given to Pharaoh. So a year later, the famine's still going on, and they come back. Help, what do we do now? And they offer themselves and their land for food. And again, Joseph deals fairly and honestly with them. So he puts into place an innovative plan. In order for the land to produce, we have to spread out over this land. Prior to this, the Egyptians had settled in. They were in a few populated, well-populated regions, but there was a lot of empty space, and so Joseph convinces them to spread out from one end of Egypt to another. And Joseph says, you have seed, you can plant. And if you do that, one day you'll be able to harvest. You will once again have your own income. You'll be able to make it for yourself. And he made one stipulation. When you harvest it, 1/5 of your crops need to go to Pharaoh. Joseph responds creatively, and he treated the people again with integrity and dignity. He made them self-sufficient. There were other kingdoms at the time that owned all the land and charged the people to use it, but they taxed at 30% or higher. Did Joseph's plan work? You bet it did. Look at what the people said. You have saved our lives, they exclaimed. That's a great story, isn't it? If we stop here right now, you'll be like, okay, well, maybe that was good. I don't really know. Well, we never stop here, do we? We have to look and see what it means for us today. What does it mean for us today? I think the first thing it means is that we need to be a person of integrity. So what exactly is integrity? Integrity means a deep commitment to do the right things for the right reason, regardless of the circumstances, even when nobody's looking. It includes a sense of honesty, dependability, consistency of character. People with integrity stick to the company policies. They own up to their mistakes. They're honest and they don't tell untruths. They're trustworthy and they're dependable. The word integrity comes from a Latin word, integer, right? Math people, you remember that? Integer, it's a whole number, right? It means whole or complete. And so integrity is an inner sense of wholeness deriving from qualities such as honesty and consistent character. It means that we are the same on the inside and the out. There's no acting. There's no mask. How you see me act on the outside is how my heart is on the inside if I have integrity. It means that I'm the same Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday as I am Sunday at church. It's geographical. I'm the same no matter where I go. Consider these questions to self-assess your personal integrity. Do you portray yourself differently depending on who you're with? Do you admit your mistakes? Are you honest at all times? Can others depend on you to do what you say you're going to do? Listen, our integrity is tested on a daily basis by a culture that has made falsehood and dishonesty a norm. That might involve cheating on a test, fudging on a business expense, downloading music illegally from the internet, taking office supplies from work, or just telling little white lies. And those sort of actions chip away at our integrity one by one. We need to be people of integrity. We need to be employees of integrity. At work, keep your word. If you say you're going to do something, then do it. If you say you're going to be somewhere, then be there. We probably all know those people that we can't really count on. Don't be one of those people. Tell the truth. Mark Twain said, if you tell the truth, you don't have to remember anything. It's easier and it's the right thing to do. Even little white lies eat away at your integrity. Don't gossip. Keep a confidence and don't talk about others behind their back. A gossip can't be trusted with a secret, but somebody of integrity will not violate a confidence. Amy had a conversation with somebody that we know yesterday, no one in the church. It was somebody outside the church. They were like, well, I don't like to gossip. But then they went ahead and gossiped. And she said, they do that every time I see them. Well, I don't normally gossip. Apparently you do. Work hard. Colossians 3:23. Work willingly at whatever you do as though you are working for the Lord rather than for people. Can I tell you, to me, this is a big deal. Right? It goes back to that Jesus being the Lord of our life thing. If you're a believer, your real boss is God. It's not the person that signs your paycheck. It's God. And so it doesn't matter if the boss is there or not there. It doesn't matter any of those things. God's always with you, right? So you're always with the boss. And so the way that you work matters. I have heard so many testimonies from non-Christian business owners who hate hiring Christians because they don't do their job. They want to take the company's time to share the gospel, or they want to do this. And there's nothing wrong with sharing the gospel, but there's a time and a place that's appropriate. When you're on somebody else's clock, it's probably not it, unless there can be appropriate. You're at the break room or something. But it is not your personal mission field from the standpoint, do your job first. Have integrity. Students, you don't do your homework for your teacher or your professor. You do it for God. That was a revelation to me in college, because I was kind of dorking my way through college. And God slapped me upside the head and said, that's not the way it's going to be. And I realized, especially if people know you're Christian, I'm sitting there, if I'm not studying and I'm bombing, I'm not bombing tests because I just can't grasp the material. I had plenty of those later. I should have known this stuff. But, to know the stuff, you got to do the homework. And then you got to write the papers and all that stuff. As a Christian, when I didn't do that stuff, it was killing my testimony. We work, we study for Jesus. Serve your boss. Seek to make him or her successful, and then you will be successful. And act consistently. A person of integrity doesn't act one way in church and another way at work and another way in social settings. And a person of integrity treats the janitor the same way they treat the CEO. I talk about my dad a lot when I talk about integrity, because if I could use one word to describe him, it would be integrity. My dad worked on the third floor of Kildee Hall at Iowa State. He knew every janitor in the building. And I was so impressed with that. And he treated them just like he treated the professor in the next office over. It was such a great example to us. Be an employee of integrity. Be a leader of integrity. Not just a business leader, employer. We're leaders as parents, as grandparents, as Sunday school teachers. We're leaders in a lot of areas in our life, whether it's at work, at church, or any other organization. Your reputation and influence will be affected by your integrity. Obviously, everything that applies to the employee applies to you, but I would also say as a leader, give credit where credit is due. When your employees or volunteers are successful, it reflects on you. I've worked for guys that were scared to death that their employees would get credit for something. And it creates an atmosphere of despair, because it doesn't matter what I'm going to do. I'm not going to get promoted. I'm not going to get any credit for it. And people tend not to work so hard when they're feeling that. But if you're not threatened as the boss and you give them the credit for their work, they will be loyal to you and they will work their tails off for you. And they'll be successful, and your superiors look like, gosh, your group is awesome. They get stuff done, and it'll reflect on you. Give credit where credit is due. Give an atmosphere of freedom and creativity to your employees. You've been in one of those meetings where they ask for your input, and you know they really don't want your input. They read it in a book somewhere that would make you happy, and so you have those meetings and you give your input, and then they go do what they want to do anyway. Don't do that. Listen. Your employees are the ones on the line. They're on that. They know what is efficient. They might have a good idea. Give them the freedom to express that. So let's bring it home now. Let's be a church of integrity. I think the first thing that means is that we have to preach God's truth faithfully. And we need to do it with grace. Truth without grace can be harsh. But grace without truth is pointless. There's no need for grace without truth. And so we need to preach the truth in love and to be faithful to God. And we need to treat people right. whether they are in the church or outside. My sister was the accountant for a large church in Nashville not long after she moved there, and she got a call one day from a local florist, not a forest, the trees can't talk, that I know of. She got a call from a local florist thanking her for paying their bill on time, which surprised her. But the lady said, churches are the worst. They use flowers all the time, and hardly any of them pay on time. What a terrible testimony. Thank you, Derek, for paying our bills on time. It should never be that a church is known for its lack of integrity. We need to treat people the right way when they're with us. If they're visiting, treat them like a guest. Help them find their way around. Talk to them. Don't worry what they look like. Treat them like people that God loves. Treat each other with love. Just don't hang out with the same people every week. Encourage each other. Call each other. Spend time together. Pray for each other. Help each other. How can we preach the Bible faithfully and then not do that? Finally, we have to invest our time, talents, and treasure properly. We want to love God and people. We want to grow and help others grow spiritually, right? This is our vision statement. Our values. We want to serve God and people, and we want to give generously. Because that's what Christ followers do when they love God. We say we want to follow God and we want to build His kingdom, but if we don't invest our time, our talents, and our treasure, then we do not have spiritual integrity. We're just people of words. So we give those things, but we use them wisely and properly. You know, sometimes we get the idea, I've been in some churches where the savings account, that was the idol in the church. And you couldn't touch it. We're not a bank, we're a church. Now, we're not foolish, and we just don't go around throwing our money. We don't want to be a church that lives like I used to live, paycheck to paycheck. But when God gives us a ministry opportunity, when He lays that on our heart, we need to do it. If we have it, give it. If we don't, raise it. But let's do whatever God calls us to do, right? It may take time on our part. I might not get to go home on Saturday afternoon and watch a football game or whatever conference they'll end up in or whatever. I might have to go do something. And so we give up our time. We take the abilities that God's given us and we use those. And we take whatever money God's given with us and we go, God, how much do you want? All right, I'll do that. The awesome thing is God says, you know, you give to me. You can't we mentioned this earlier. You can't outgive God, right? So you have not lost money that you give to God. And this is not a sermon about money. I don't mean that. This is an example of if we have integrity as a church, we're going to do what God says, whether that's with our money, whether that's with our time, whether that's with our talents, it doesn't matter. When God calls, we go, yes, sir, let's go. And we'll see God do some pretty cool things, I think, because He blesses obedience. And for us to have spiritual integrity, we have to do what God tells us to do. Otherwise, we're just fooling ourselves and everybody else. And there's really no reason for us to be here. To do that and to maintain integrity, then we got to guard our motives, right? We don't want to do what is right for the wrong reasons. We're not here to build our kingdom, but to build God's kingdom. We don't do these things to compete with other churches. You know, we have Waukee Point of Grace, we have Point of Grace, we got Life Church or Lifetime Church. No, it's Lifetime Fitness. There's another one coming in over by Arby's. Hey, their buildings are big and all this stuff. Our goal is not to oh, we're falling behind. We better do something or we'll be the smallest church in Waukee. Who cares? We're on the same team. If you lead somebody to Christ and they're like, I'm so excited about loving Jesus, I'm going to Hope Lutheran, hallelujah. Right? They're right with God, they're going to church, praise God. We can just be a sending place, a starter church. We'll let God take care of all that stuff, right? We're just going to do what he tells us to do. So we don't manipulate, we don't intimidate, and we don't humiliate people. That's not how God accomplishes his will, and we're to emulate his character. We again treat people with respect and dignity. We give the freedom to ask questions. You got a question here, you ask it. We don't have a power structure that's going to be like, hey, don't question the leadership. Goodness gracious, y'all need to question me sometimes. You're always free to do that. We love unconditionally while encouraging all to seek Jesus wholeheartedly. That's what we do. We want you to seek Jesus with all your heart. And we are here to help you do that. We are here to help you find God's agenda for your life. Our agenda does not matter. So let's summarize. Integrity is so much more than just being honest. It is how we live out the answer to the question, is Jesus the Lord of your life? That's the question. Let's pray.